Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a neighbor hated that I own an 18-wheeler. The HOA that she is a part of demanded that I sell my truck because it pollutes the environment and causes too much noise for them. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the video. This is the first time I ever had to deal with an HOA that I don't even live within the borders of. This HOA is not even legal, but I don't want to ramble and get ahead of myself. I work in an industrial area and own my own factory. I try to cut costs where I can, and one way I found was to do a lot of the transportation myself. That had led to me owning an 18-wheeler truck and driving it around a lot for deliveries and such. Most days I use it as my main transportation to and from work since I get supplies closer to my home than the factory. I don't know the exact time frame of when it happened or how, but there is a neighborhood basically directly next to the industrial area. It is small too, maybe just 30 houses. I could not imagine many people wanting to live near that kind of environment, and at first I assumed it was all just people that worked there and wanted to not travel far. Well, I was wrong and found out that none of the people living in that neighborhood worked there. This neighborhood has an HOA, and calling it that is more than generous. There is no way that the HOA is legal, because I'm pretty sure the area being used for housing in general is not legal. I was actually reading stories in this group that I learned the issue I was having was not as isolated as I believed it to be. In Asia, HOAs are not really a thing the same way they are in the Western world. Color me surprised to find out all of the other people having the same kind of issues in my area. HOAs here are out of control and more often than not have zero legality to them. Now, I wouldn't have known any of this if it wasn't for me getting stopped one day by this horrible woman. In many parts of the world they would call her Karen. Karen, I need to speak to you about this horrible truck and noise you keep making. Me, what noise? The truck is pretty quiet considering everything. Karen, you should not be driving a truck at all. I'm the HOA president here and we have a policy that forbids this kind of vehicle. Me, well, I don't live in this neighborhood. It's also the only way to go from my factory back to my house. I don't have a choice. Karen, well, I'm giving you a choice right now. You can either sell this awful thing or I can make sure that you have nothing. Me, well, good luck with that because I need this truck. Karen had no intimidation factor and I really didn't care. This was not where I lived and my factory was not part of that area either. She couldn't just get me in trouble for passing through the only road available to me. She just wanted to try and act all tough and I felt like I was calling her bluff by ignoring her. 2 weeks later, I had an inspector come to my factory claiming that there were reports of me not having any proper permits. I knew this was Karen trying to get me in trouble and my factory shut down as some kind of revenge. When you call and make a claim like that, they don't just take your word for it and shut a place down. I gave the guy full freedom to see that everything was up to code and all my paperwork was current. He could not find a hair out of place, and even just to make sure things were covered, I also proved that the truck and my ability to drive it was fine as well. I passed without issue and was told that my factory was perfectly fine and not gonna get shut down from these claims. I did ask the guy if they were going to report this back to the person who claimed I was working illegally, and they said yes. It was part of it to make sure things got closed out properly and Karen would not be calling them again and again about the same issue. It was gonna take way more than that in order to get rid of me. Karen must have realized that her plan was stupid and actually showed up to my factory one day. I was not in like shock or anything since the company name is on my truck and the internet exists. I did not actually see Karen until after her next plan was ready to backfire. I was in my truck going over some paperwork for inventory being moved when a bullet came flying through the driver's side window. It grazed my ear, but I won't lie and say that it didn't hurt. I was bleeding and my body went into an almost fight or flight type state. I actually opened the door and jumped down in case another shot was coming, and this time not gonna miss. Instead, I landed on the ground and saw Karen standing there holding the gun. She still has it aimed for me, and instead of doing the smart thing of taking cover, I run over and try to get the gun away from her. I'm about twice her size and there's no difficulty when it comes to disarming her and getting her to the ground. I stayed there until the police showed up, and that was when her entire demeanor changed. She went from cursing me and telling me that she was gonna shoot me again to crying and playing the victim the second she saw police there. I got off of her so they could put her in handcuffs because it was obvious that she had shot me. My ear was still bleeding from the bullet, and now that the excitement was wearing down, I actually started to feel some pain. I didn't want to lose an entire day of work for just a grace, but they convinced me to go to the hospital. If nothing else, the medical report could help me in court to prove that it was a gun and stuff like that. Nothing major was wrong, and I was lucky that if it was a little off, I could have had my ear shot off completely. Instead, I just got a small scar and a very weird story to tell to people. Getting shot might give people some tough guy cred, but not when a Karen did it. Anyway, I did press charges on her for attempting to kill me. She also was in trouble because having the gun was not legal. Getting them here can be hard, but when you get caught with one you are not meant to have, you are basically guaranteed to go to prison. Altogether, Karen was getting locked up for a very long time, but it doesn't actually end there. Due to the attention she drew on herself from the entire thing, the government now knew that there was an HOA that should not exist in a neighborhood that shouldn't exist either. That area was industrial as well, not residential. The people were all told that they needed to move because the homes were gonna get destroyed due to not being legal. I have no idea how many people living there knew about it, but I didn't really feel bad about it. The whole thing just gave me a bad taste in my mouth for that entire neighborhood, so them being gone seemed great to me. No more needing to pass through on my truck and worry about a-holes complaining or trying to report my factory to be petty. And yeah, ripe stars, if you have watched until here and still enjoy these HOA stories, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment, because that would help me tremendously. The next revenge story starts like this. This happened a few months ago while I was visiting London with some friends. My friends wanted to do some outlet shopping, so we went to Bicester Village. And I probably pronounced that incorrectly because all these British names are always weird. Anyway, we decided to split up to save on time. I tend to shop pretty quickly and I was not really into high-end or luxury products anyway, so around lunchtime I decided to go get a bite to eat. Now, anyone who has been to Bicester knows that there is not a lot of places to eat and tables to sit at. While there are so more often than not, you share tables with other shoppers. Since I was alone, I asked a fellow Asian if I could sit with her. She just kind of sneered at me and rolled her eyes, but didn't say no to me sitting there, so I did. There was another empty seat next to her, and soon her friend arrived. Her friend looked at me and then said something to her friend in their language, while the other one laughed and rolled her eyes again. I don't really mind that they are talking in their language, they were entitled to do that, but they were both mean, and I had an inkling that they were talking about me at the start of their conversation. Here is where my revenge comes in. Based on what I heard, I knew they were Korean, since I watched my fair share of Korean TV shows and could pick out a few words. I am Asian too, but I was very obviously not Korean, so they assumed that I didn't understand them. They were right about that, but since I've been to Seoul a number of times, I learned a few phrases while I was there. As I stood up in my best Korean accent, I thanked them and said goodbye in Korean. Now, if they hadn't been talking about me, no harm done, right? But based on how wide their eyes got when they looked at me, I knew I caught them. So I just smiled and then left, hoping they learned their lesson not to assume people around them don't understand them. And the next one is a malicious compliance story. I'm 27 male and live with my boyfriend 28 male. The house in question was our first place together that we had been in for 5 years. It was the only place we could afford and was not the most aesthetic when we moved in. It is shaped like a shipping container and not much bigger than one, plus it is surrounded on 3 sides by 2+ story homes, and on the remaining side there is a parking lot for all of said homes which opens onto a major road. In the backyard there was a tiny shed which fits a staked washer and dryer and was otherwise a thin strip of dirt the length of the home boxed in by the shed and the privacy fences of the other homes. Our yard itself was not fenced in, we had to use the front door and walk around the home and then through the parking lot to access the laundry shed/yard, no back door. The original landlord was very receptive to us and making improvements to the house. We painted, refinished the cabinets, tiled the bathroom, etc. In the backyard I built raised garden beds, installed a small pond and bird fountain, as well as other landscaping so that it became a bit of an unexpected oasis. We had an outdoor table and chairs so we could sit out there in the morning and share a cup of tea. As you may have put together, the original landlord sold the home and our lease transferred to the new owner. We had plans already in the works to purchase our first home together, so we only intended to stay to the end of the lease anyway and figured it should not affect us too much. Almost immediately, the new landlord began to harass us nearly daily, often about issues entirely out of our control, such as cars being parked in the lot sideways, cars which were first of all our neighbors' cars and were merely slightly crooked, certainly not sideways. Once he showed up at the front door at 8:30 p.m. on a Friday, we had 2 friends over to play board games and have dinner, and he asked, "Are you gonna wind up the party anytime soon, boys? Because people are gonna get the wrong idea, you know." We did our best to appease the landlord for the remaining months, but it became extremely grating and honestly made me feel like I was being watched constantly. The final straw was when a technician came to fix the washing machine in the shed and the landlord noticed the table and chairs in the backyard. We received an email that evening telling us, yes, in all caps, to remove all modifications of the yard. No patio furniture is permitted. Mind you, this is not even visible from the road, but whatever, so I responded just to be sure, apologies for the mistake. To confirm, you would like us to remove all modifications we have personally made to the yard since our move-in date? The answer, yes, remove immediately at the soonest convenience. You got it, Chief. We were just about in our final month of the lease and preparing to move to our new home. I had planned to leave the raised beds, plants and an empty pond behind, obviously, but I decided I was gonna revert the place to a dirt strip out of spite. So that's what I did. I collected my bird fountain/pump, my fish, the flower bulbs and other plants. I even took the dirt I purchased for the raised beds to our new home. We filled in the pond and made sure to remove all the grass, so it was one sad strip of dirt again. The landlord was extremely angry to find the yard in that state, and he was threatening to sue us for destruction of property because we ruined his pond. He tried to keep our security deposit and he did take us to small claims court over the so-called damage. However, we were diligent when we had moved in and had photos of the original yard plus the email instructing us to remove all modifications of the yard. He tried to say that we had done other damage to the home, all of which was regular wear and tear after 5 years of occupancy, which any landlord should expect, and is responsible over basic maintenance for such as repainting. Not to mention, we could prove we left the place nicer than it was originally, with approval from the original landlord at the time we did the projects. I'm sure the judge saw through him immediately. He was quite rude and continued to interrupt her, to which she reprimanded him several times. That is to say, we got our security deposit back in full, even having trashed the yard. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. I ignored my coworker. Am I the a-hole? This is not an issue that I'm having with the company, this is just something with me and her. It's probably happening with other male coworkers, but I cannot speak on their behalf. So I work in an office and I have a normal friendly relationship with my coworkers. We joke at times and have gone for drinks after work. None of these people are my best friends or anything, but I'm cool with them, including the women. Recently though, a new woman was hired and shortly after that we received a message from HR. They said that we were going to have some employee conduct and harassment meeting. They brought in a speaker and we watched some videos and did an online test like at a job orientation. Basically, we learned to keep conversations work focused, avoid or limit conversations after hours or not at the job. Obvious things like never make comments on physical appearance or do anything inappropriate. They even gave acted out examples. There was a video of someone bumping into a coworker at the park and they showed the right and wrong examples. The right was just basic formalities and keeping it moving, the wrong was extending the conversation and asking about their day. I didn't think anything of it because we have HR meetings like this from time to time. Never this extensive though. The new employee pretty much said that she asked for this meeting to happen. She said that she agreed with everything we learned and that it was good to know. Now, I'm not here to judge her or say she did the wrong thing. I don't know what she experienced in short time she's worked here or at a previous job. I don't know the kind of life she has lived or what she has gone through. I really don't want this to become people saying, don't trust women. And well, I was at a coffee shop after work and she came in shortly after me and tried to strike up a conversation. I kept it friendly and short and then resumed what I was doing. She seemed put off by that. And then literally the similar situation to the video I mentioned happened. I was at the grocery store, we bumped into each other, I said short small talk things and wished her a nice day. With my other coworkers, including women, I'm more buddy-buddy and we have inside jokes. My coworkers buy me birthday presents and we have a good time. Me and the new coworker work in the same small department, so she interacts with me a lot. She approached me and said that I'm ignoring and isolating her. I told her I just don't want anything to be misconstrued. I keep it professional if I'm ordering coffee and food for the group. Then I would order ask what she wants. I just make sure to not bring up personal life stuff with her. And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments whether you think OP is being the a-hole here or not. But I would very clearly say that OP is not the a-hole, he is just very clearly adhering to the rules and doesn't want to do any mistakes, especially with that person. Sometimes I would say it's better be safe than sorry. Either way, someone in the comments said, not the a-hole, you are doing exactly what your HR mandated training advised. Your coworker has told you that your coworker feels isolated and ignored. Mention to HR or your manager that you are adhering to the training, but your coworker has expressed feeling isolated and ignored. Now you would like official guidance dealing with the situation, get this documented. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, this is ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with coworkers being friends or even dating. She asked for this and that's what she's getting. Your employer is also the a-hole for trying to coerce employees to not be friends with each other. That's also a great way to increase turnover. Update to the story. Well, I'm just lost at like her getting HR to show us how to properly interact with a coworker, and then me interacting with her in the way HR showed makes her upset. I get that she could have gone through something in the past, just don't know what she wants from me. I'm just doing what HR suggested. I'm obviously not going to give my coworkers I already have a bond and friendship with the cold shoulder to accommodate to one new person. She said she agreed with everything we learned from HR, so I'm just applying it. I'm not doing this out of some lame revenge desire or something. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I've been a lurker here for a while and I noticed that a lot of HOA presidents like to make rules that might toe the line between legal and illegal. I don't think I have yet to see anybody else go through what I did, where my HOA president tried to break the actual constitutional rights of the people though. I was never too keen on living in an HOA neighborhood, but due to life working out that way, I ended up in one. Before I talk about the HOA, I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about me first. I am an Iraq veteran who does not really like it when people act like bullies. I was always a pretty tough guy, but since getting back, I wanted to enjoy the calmer things in life. I love driving my truck out to the mountains and getting some old-fashioned fresh air. I also keep guns in my house that vary in size and purpose. One of them is a handgun I keep for my own protection, and one is a rifle that I have mounted along with my other gear that I am proud of. Some are just display guns and so old that I don't even think ammo is made for them anymore. Now, my HOA has had more veterans moving in the last 5 years or so, and it is clear that the HOA president is not too happy about that fact. We like to keep flags on our door for pride, and I will admit sometimes on holidays we are known to get a little bit too loud and rowdy. We are not perfect, but then again, nobody is. The HOA president, though, has been trying to figure out a way to change things in a way that would make the neighborhood seem like we don't really exist. An example of this is that he hates my truck for just existing and not being a car or SUV like a lot of other people. He wanted to get rid of it and hired a tow truck to take it out of my own driveway and away. He claimed that it was an unknown vehicle. The owner, aka me, requested to be removed. That was the first really big fight I had with the HOA that ended up with them giving me back my truck because they realized it was theft and I could sue them for it. They also hated the fact that me, along with the other veterans, had guns. I just want to make one thing really clear, and that is we did not carry around our guns outside of our homes. We would take others inside to show them and we would talk about them. They really would not end up outside or be considered any real danger. The HOA held a board meeting and decided that they were going to outlaw guns in the neighborhood entirely. Some people that had guns and were not veterans did not know better and actually gave up their guns to the HOA. For those of you that don't know much about the law, the Second Amendment of the Constitution gives us the right to bear arms. The HOA was obviously not allowed to take that right away from us, and we all knew it. Almost every veteran refused to give up their guns due to the Second Amendment. The HOA president kept saying that his rules went over that and he could ban guns if he wanted to. We knew that everything he was saying was BS, so I decided to get together with the other veterans and planned to stand up to this president. Our original plan was basically going to start a suit against him, saying he was trying to take away our guns illegally. However, we never had a chance to get that off the ground because of what he did one night when I was not home. He must have not known that I had cameras because he snuck into my house and put all of my guns in a bag. The only one he could not get was my handgun, since it was in a safe. I was fuming that somebody could disrespect a veteran that badly by going into his home and stealing his property. I was not scared to fight this guy because I knew he already hated me and we were just going at each other's throats before this event. So this was my last straw and I was not gonna let him just walk away from it. Instead of just a lawsuit against the HOA, I was suing the president directly for breaking into my house in order to steal from me. He was trying to block my rights as an American and people in the neighborhood were not happy. Even some neighbors that had no military connection could not believe that he did something like that and were angry. We had people that did not even own guns signing on to help us sue the HOA for trying to stop us from expressing our Second Amendment rights. I think they had a lawyer, but I didn't care because I knew that any judge would see that he was trying to go over federal law for his own petty reasons. In court against me, the HOA president admitted to breaking into my house and stealing my guns. His reasoning was it was a danger to the neighborhood and part of his job was to keep everybody safe. I will admit he put up a good performance, but it really did not matter since I caught him red-handed. He was told to give me back all of my guns and that he was gonna end up doing community service for breaking into my house. He was not done yet because he still had to deal with the whole neighborhood going after him and wanting blood. He really tried to show the bylaws that he made stating that this HOA was not allowed to have guns. His reasoning is that if we wanted to keep our guns, there was nothing stopping us from moving out and leaving the neighborhood. Now I realized that his main goal all along was to try and drive us out of the neighborhood. Thinking the gun rule would upset us so much, we might just give up and move away. Our lawyer stated that HOA rules were not allowed to override federal ones and he couldn't stop people from using their Second Amendment rights. The only time he could do something is if there was an actual threat, and in that case he should call the police to handle it. The part that took the most time was that everybody in the neighborhood that wanted to get their guns back or keep them had to show proof of ownership and license. I agree having that is important, but doing it for everybody all at once was a really slow process. After that, the HOA president was clearly not wanted anymore and luckily stepped down willingly instead of us having to make him. Other board members that had followed his lead on the gun bylaws followed him out. Now, the HOA board is mostly made up of veterans and they really are doing their part to keep the neighborhood a nice place. Any new rules that they make seem to make a lot of sense and are agreed on with most of the community. For example, a lot of neighbors had complaints about yard work being done and things like leaves and sticks being blown into the street. So the new HOA made a rule basically stating that you had to clean up after your own yard work. It made me think for the first time that an HOA could actually be useful if it is run by the right people. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.